So a circle, some of the terms you have to be familiar. Let me get rid of this. So there's a center of the circle. Right? That's the center. So I'll draw another circle here. That's the center. Right? And then you have a radius. What is the radius? A radius is a line that starts from the edge of the circle and goes to the center. That's the radius. And it's right here, right? There's the radius. So this is a radius, so that's a radius, right? So any line that goes from the center to the edge or the edge of the circle, that's the radius, that's the radius, that's the radius, that's the radius, right? So you have an infinite amount of radius, radii, I guess, in a circle. The other word is called the diameter. Now the diameter is a line that goes from one edge of the circle, passes through the center, and goes to the other one, goes to the other side. So here is an example. There, that's a diameter. It goes from this side, the edge of the circle, goes through the middle, and goes to the other side. We know that the radius have and the diameter have a special relationship. So let me draw another circle here. Here is a circle. Let's say that's 4 centimeters. Well, if I decide to walk from the center and then that side, that would be also 4. Agreed? So if you have a circle and you know this is 4 and that's the radius, well, how much would this be? Well, this would be 4 plus 4. This would be 8. So radius, diameter. Right, so the diameter will always be double the radius, and the radius will always be half the diameter. So if you have a circle, and I said, hey, the diameter is 20. What's the radius, right? The radius would be this one. Well, the radius would be half the diameter, which makes it 10. All right, so, and then, then we have one more. They're pointing to the circumference. So imagine a circle, right? And you were standing over here, and you were to walk around the circle. The distance that you walk is called the circumference. The distance around the circle is called the circumference. Just like when you do the perimeter. Let's see, here's a rectangle. This measures 3, this measures 7, this would measure 7. So what would be the perimeter of this rectangle? It would be 3 plus 7 plus 3 plus 7, which would be 20. So the perimeter of this rectangle is 20. But with a circle, it's not called perimeter, it's called circumference. And then you also notice that circumference, right? So imagine I took a circle and I cut it with a scissor right here. And then I had a piece of string, right? I took a scissor, cut it right here. It would stretch out to be about that distance, yeah? I took a scissor and cut it out. Now, if we measure if we take the diameter, right? So imagine the diameter of this circle and I put it over here. The diameter and circumference have a special relationship. The diameter is 1, 2, 3. So the circumference diameter shares a little relationship. The diameter is always going to be 3.14 times the diameter. Okay, so if I told you, hey, let me draw it. Here's a circle. And the diameter is 5, right? How does that help me find the circumference, which is the distance around a circle? Well, if I know the diameter is 5, I know that the circumference is going to be 5 one time, 2 times, 3 times, and then 0.14. So it would be 5, 10, 5 plus 5 plus 5, and then 0.14 of 5, right? It's not a whole of 5. It'd be 0.7. So out of the 5, well, obviously this is not a full 5. That would be 0.7. So if I know the diameter, it's 5. The circumference, the distance around the shape, would be about 15.7. Right, so I'll draw another circle. And in this circle, the diameter is 12. So if I wanted to see, well, now that I don't know the diameter, can I figure out what this distance is? If I took a walk around this round-shaped park, well, I know that the distance would be the diameter once, the diameter twice, another 12, the diameter 3 times, so 36, and then a little bit more, right, about 2. All right, so it would be about 38 in total, because this would measure about 2. I'm just estimating. Okay, so I know that with every diameter and circumference, right, the circumference is 3.14 times the diameter. It's 3 of these and a little bit more, 0.14 of the next one. So that's what we talked about. So if you're given a circle, so let's say you're given a circle, and they say, hey, the diameter is, I don't know, 10. Well, we can use 2 formulas. We can use this formula, and I'm going to write on the other side, we can use this formula, 2 times pi times r. Pi is a symbol that represents 3.14159 ... right? Where does pi come from? If you take the circumference of a circle and you divide it by the diameter, you get this. Always. Any circumference of any circle with its respective diameter, you're always going to get that ratio of 3.14159. Going back to the problem, if I know the diameter and I give you the diameter and I ask you, hey, how many steps would it take to walk around the circle? Well, you would use this formula. So circumference is what I'm trying to find. Pi, right, is the symbol that represents this never-ending number. So it's much easier to write the symbol of pi and then multiply by the diameter. Diameter in this case is 10. C equals, and pi times 10 is just 10 pi. So that's one way you can answer this question. Or you can take your calculator, multiply 10 times pi, and actually get a numerical value. And that's going to give us 31.42. And that's going to be approximate because we're rounding it. What about this formula here? Well, what if you had a circle, and instead of the radius, instead of the diameter, they gave you the radius. And they said the radius is 4.2. The distance from the edge of the circle to the center is 4.2 inches. What is the distance around the circle? What is the circumference? Well, C equals 2 times pi, right? That doesn't change. But the radius, I do know what the radius is. They gave it to me. It's 4.2. So the next step would be to multiply. I'm going to multiply these two. 2 times 4.2 is 8.4. And then I'm going to multiply by pi. So one of the answers is 8.4 pi. We can leave the answer like this, right? I don't want, some people don't like to have a decimal because a decimal is not going to be an exact value, so they leave it like this. So the answer would be 8.4 pi inches, or take the calculator, type in 8.4 and multiply by pi, and we get 26.39 rounded. Okay, so those are the two formulas you were talking about. So here is a problem. What is the circumference of this circle right here? Well, what's given to me? Is this the radius or this is the diameter? I was given the diameter. So which form are we going to use? Well, I'm going to use this guy here. C equals pi times diameter. All right, now let's work it. So we're going to take that formula. I'm going to try to find what C is, right? Because that's the question here. What is the circumference? Pi stays, but I can replace D for diameter with 5 because it's given to me. So this is 5. I'm almost done. So answer number 1, pi times 5. We can leave it as 5 pi inches. Or you actually get to multiply 5 times pi. 5 times pi. And the numerical would be 5 times pi, 15.71 inches. Yeah, that's it. Next question. What is the circumference of this circle? All right, let's start from the beginning. What's given to us? Well, the radius is given to us. This is the radius. I'm going to label that the radius equals 4 inches. Which formula should I use? Well, I'm going to use the one that has radius. So C equals 2 times pi times the radius. So we're going to write the formula, which let me write it again. And I'm going to plug in the numbers. So instead of R, I'm going to replace that with 4, and everything else will stay the same. 2 times pi times 4, and I can multiply 2 and 4. So if I multiply 2 and 4, I get 8. And then I can leave it as 8 pi. So answer number 1, or version number 1, 8 pi. Or, again, take the calculator, multiply 8 times pi. And you get 25.13. It's not exact because we're rounding, so it's about 25.13 inches. Okay. Let's see, more examples. What is the circumference of this circle? Again, think about it. What's given to us? This line represents, this line here is a diameter. So they gave me the diameter. Which formula should I use? I'm going to use this guy right here. C equals pi times d. Let's work it out. So write the formula first. We're going to substitute. So C, I don't know what it is, so that stays. Pi, we know is 3.14159, etc. So that we use a symbol pi because it's much easier. And then diameter, I'm going to replace the letter D with the value of 9. So circumference is, and we don't write pi 9, we actually write 9 pi. So the circumference is 9 pi, or the numerical value, 9 times pi, put in your calculator, enter, you get 28.27 centimeters. So we have two versions. These two answers would be correct. So what is the circumference? This circumference of this circle, you can say it's 9 pi inches, or 28.27 centimeters. Right, so a few more examples. I'm not going to do all of them. Let me do this one. What do I know? I know this is the radius, right? This is the radius. So which formula I'm going to use? I'm going to use C equals 2 times pi times R. I need to find C, so that's going to stay, 2 is going to stay, the pi is going to stay, but the radius I'm going to use 5. I'm going to multiply it out. 2 times 5 is 10, or 10 times pi. That's answer number 1, or, right? So you can either leave it with pi, or we multiply 10 times pi and find the numerical answer, which is 31.42. Let me do this one. What's given to me? So I'll go with the circle and say, hey, this is the diameter. So I'm going to use this formula, C equals pi times d. C equals pi times, let's replace d with 8. So now we have our answer. C equals 8 pi. So just make sure that you write the number first and then the pi symbol. Or take the calculator, multiply 8 times pi, and you get 25.13 approximately. Let's do the next one. The radius of the circle is given to me. Look, that's the radius. It's 11. What's the diameter? Well, the diameter would be a line that's right straight through the middle. So if the radius is 11, the diameter is going to be double that. So the diameter is 22. Circumference. Well, you have the diameter or the radius. Would you want to use this formula? Or do you want to use this formula? Which one would you rather use? Well, I'd rather use C equals pi times d. C equals pi times the diameter, which in this case is 22. Or we're going to rewrite this. Let's clean that up. So answer number 1, the circumference of that circle is 22 pi, or 22 times pi, calculator is not working, 22 times pi, which is 69.12, or 69.12. Let's go down a little bit more. The radius of the circle. Well, let's see what's given to us. Actually, this line represents the diameter, right? The line that starts on one edge of the circle, goes through the center, goes to the other side. That's called the diameter. So that's 16. What's the radius? The radius is a line that's only goes to the center. It doesn't go to the other side, which is always half the diameter. So this is 8. So the radius is 8. What's the circumference? And again, whichever formula you choose, you have both of these, C equals pi d and C equals 2 pi r, so you can use either or. One uses the radius, the other one uses diameter. You pick. I'll use both. So C equals pi and the diameter is 8. Over here would be C equals 2 times pi. And what's the radius? The radius is 8. Notice that on the left side, pi times 8 is just 8 pi, right? Circumference is 8 pi. And on the, left side. And then on the right side, if I multiply, I made a mistake. This shouldn't have been 8, it should have been 16. Pi times 16, or 16 pi, right? Because the diameter is 16. And on this side, 2 times 8 is 16. And then you bring in the pi, and notice that you get the same exact answer. So it's a matter of preference. I prefer C equals pi d. So we have a couple of questions here. This one's a little different. So let's look at the first one. So I always want you to draw, always, a circle here. So let's draw the circle. And we want to find the diameter. So write a line like this. Write D, the diameter, and put a question mark because I don't know what it is. But I do know the circumference. So outside, put a little line like this, a little arrow, saying if you take a walk around this circle, it's 138.16 meters. How does that help me find the diameter? Well, we're going to use those two formulas again. So this one we're going to use the formula that has diameter, so C equals pi times diameter. Circumference, in this case, I know what C is. So instead of C, I'm going to replace it with this value, 138.16. And on the other side, pi times diameter, right? Our equation is going to look like this at the end. Diameter equals a certain value, because that's what I'm trying to find, right? Because they're asking, what is the diameter? So how do I get this line here to look like this line? Notice that the difference between the two lines, I have a pi multiplied by diameter here, and the last line only has a diameter. So somehow I need to get rid of that pi. Go back to last year when you did equations. So if that's multiplication, I'm going to use division. Here's my division. And I'm going to divide that by pi. Pi divided by pi is 1. 1 times the diameter is just diameter. So if I divide the right side by pi, I'm going to divide the left side by pi. So put that in your calculator. 138.16 divided by pi. Enter. Shoot. 138.16 divided by pi. You're going to get 47.98 rounded. So I can go back to my circle. I can go back to my circle. and I can write, hey, this diameter is 43.98. Yeah, and we have an answer. Look, it's 44. Really close. Number 2. Come on, erase. A iron rod length 10.30. So they had an iron rod, right? And somebody bent this. One of those strong guys bent that iron rod and became like this after he bent it. So he bent this and made to that. So we know that the circumference, right? So when you measure this, it's 10.38 feet. They're asking us, hey, what's the radius? This guy right here. Put a question mark. So if it's radius, we're going to use this formula. 2 times pi times r. So at the end of the day, I want my equation to look like this, because that's what I'm trying to find. Radius equals something, because that's what the question is asking for us. So, can I replace circumference? Yeah, I can, because they give it to me. Look, it's 10.38 equals 2 times pi times r. Notice that I have to make this line look like this line. So I need to get rid of the 2 and the pi. So we're going to use inverse operation, which you learned already. So we're going to divide this side by 2 pi. And if I divide the right side by 2 pi, I'm going to divide the left side by 2 pi. Why do I do that? Oh, let's start on the right side. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Pi divided by pi is also 1. So I have 1, 1, 1, 1. All those ones multiplied by r is just r, which is exactly what I wanted. So on the right side, I need you to put in your calculator. So if you put it in a calculator as a fraction, you're going to have no issues. 10.38 divided by 2 pi, and you press enter, you actually get an answer. My stupid calculator keeps turning off. 10.38, 2 pi at the bottom, enter. Oh, come on. 1 second. 10.38 divided by 2 pi. Don't shut off. And I get 1.65. Do we have that? Oh, look, it's right here. Let me do the other one. So please always draw. We have a circle or an egg. Here's a circle, and it says that the circumference. So if you took your dog for a walk, it would be 89.18 inches, or you took a bug, an ant, for a walk around the circle. That's how much they would walk, distance-wise. And it has a diameter. Put D and put question mark, because I don't know what that is right now. So that's what we're trying to find out. So we're going to use the formula C equals pi D. We can replace C with the value here, because I know what it is. 89.18 equals pi times diameter. Because it's multiplying here, we're going to use the inverse of multiplication, which is division. Remember, I want my equation to look like this. So I need to get rid of the pi. How do I get rid of it? I divide by pi, which means I divide by pi on the other side. Pi and pi goes away. Left leaves me with D, because pi divided by pi is 1, and 1 times D is D. On the other side, it's just a matter of dividing. 89.18 divided by pi, enter, it's 28, rounded, 28.39. Last section here. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger, because I can't see. Right. So same. I'm going to do 4 and 5. 4 says, again, it's a watch, right? So if you have a watch, it says that the minute hand, so you have the hour hand and the minute hand. The minute hand is the bigger one. And that travels, it's going to be traveling throughout the day, right? It's going to travel the minute hand So when the minute hand travels, it travels around the clock, and it's telling you that the distance it's traveled is 103.62. So that tells us that the circumference is 103.62 for this millimeters for this watch. And they're asking us find the length of the minute hand. So find the length of the minute hand. The minute hand is the radius. Yeah. So if you look at a clock again, let me draw a clock. This is the hour hand, and this is the minute hand. Yeah. So this is the radius, and what I don't know. So I'll put a radius, and I'll put a question mark. Well, C equals 2 times pi times r. What's given to me? Circumference is given to me. It says the circumference is 103.62. So I'm going to go here and change the C for 103.62. On the other side is 2 times pi times r. So the question is asking us for the minute hand, which is the radius. So we need to get our equation to look like this. Meaning, the 2 and the pi have to go away. So I'm going to divide this by 2 and divide this by pi. So I'm going to divide that side by 2 pi, and I'm going to divide this side by 2 pi. 2 and 2 divided by 2 is 1. Pi divided by pi is 1. And all those ones multiplied by r is just r. Mission accomplished. So on the right side, just divide that. 103.62 divided by 2 pi. Please don't equal. There you go. Approximately, right? It's going to be approx 16.97. So the radius, millimeters by the way, the radius of this clock, at the minute hand is 16.97 millimeters. Okay. I am going to, no, I can do one more. Here's a circumference. Sorry, here is a circle, and it's given to us that the circumference is 49.67. Did I just do this? No, I didn't. And then they're asking us to find the diameter. So draw a diameter. Here's a diameter. Something that goes from one edge of the circle to the other side and goes through the mirror. Diameter. I'll put a question mark because I don't know what that is as of now. Use the formula C equals pi times d. Circumference is given to me. It's right here. It says that circumference is 49.67 equals pi times d. Remember, we want this equation. We want to find what the diameter is. So we have our equation to look like this. Diameter equals the value that we are trying to find out. So I need to get rid of this pi. Because it's multiplying over here, we're going to use inverse operation. We're going to divide. You're going to divide by pi. And if I divide that side by pi, I divide this side by pi. Pi divided by pi is 1. 1 times diameter is just d, diameter. And again, take your calculator. Divide 49.67 divided by pi. You get 15.81. Again, approximate because we're rounding. Okay. If you want to then want to practice. So I'll do one. I'll only do number 6 so you know what to do. So number 6 says, hey, there's a circle. I want you to find the radius and the diameter. So what it's given to us, they say that the circumference, the distance around this is 39.94. So it doesn't matter which one you find, the radius or diameter, right? So I'm just going to draw here the diameter, I'll put a question mark, I'll draw a radius, right? I'll put the question mark. I don't know either of them. Which formula should I use? Should I use this one? Or should I use this one? It doesn't matter. Whichever one, I don't know, is less work for you or easier for you. I'm going to pick this guy. So circumference is given to me. It's 39.94 equals pi times diameter. We're looking for the diameter, right? We're looking for the radius and diameter, but this formula is helping me find the diameter. So I want my answer to look like this. My last line of when solving this equation to be diameter equals something. who do we need to get rid of? The pi. So divide by pi, and divide this side by pi. Pi divided by pi is 1. 1 times diameter is diameter. And what is 39.94 divided by pi? It's 12, approximately 12.71, etc. Now, if that's a diameter, so if I go back here and say, hey, I found a diameter, can you find the radius? That's easy, right? So again, let me draw the circle. So we just found out that this line right here, from one edge of the circle, passing through the middle, is 12.71. Well, what if I'm only interested in the line that starts at the edge and stops in the middle? What if I'm only interested in that? Well, take 12.71. I take 12.71 and divide that by 2. And we get 6.36. So the diameter, half of it, 6.36. And I'm not going to do the rest because you can.